Bilt has another devaluation, there's a ton of good deals, and lastly, I made a $450 mistake on an upcoming trip that I want to talk about. This and more in today's roundup. Big favor, give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you're new, consider subscribing. First up, Bilt is in the news again. At this point, it very much feels like an unforced error. Last week, we talked about how they devalued rent days and how many points you'll be able to earn. Now they've made an additional change and they're going to be exempting tax payments as well. The issue for both is that they kind of did it in a sneaky way. The first one was buried in the terms and conditions, second one was unannounced and was relayed through an interview with TPG. As part of the October 1st rent date update, tax payments will be excluded from bonus point promotions. On one hand, it seems fine, it's not that big of a deal, but if you take a step back and you kind of look at the grand picture, there are a lot of red flags. The idea of rent days is that you get double points on the first of the month, and that means you get 6x back for dining, 4x back for travel, and 2x back for other purchases outside of rent. With the upcoming change, they're capping off how many points you can earn, so only up to 1,000 bonus points on rent days. So for example, if you spent $1,000 on tax payments, you get 1,000 bonus points, and then you'd be done. With this change, they're saying that even 1,000 bonus points, that $1,000 payment is already too much. The entire idea of tax payments is that it's a pretty low effort arbitrage. For example, you can pay estimated taxes using your credit card for a 1.82% fee. In the case of Bilt, you're paying that fee to get 2x points. Whether it's even worth the brain cells depends on how much you're spending on those payments and also how you value the points. If you're on Team Cashback or the Team Minimum Value for redemptions, then the juice might not be worth the squeeze. A bit of a different example, but here is someone with $60K in property tax bills every year. If you're a sole proper business owner, you could be looking at $10K to $100K in estimated tax payments, or maybe even a lot more. For our example though, let's say you're paying $60K in estimated tax payments due to your additional income. The idea is that if you own your own business, the payments are not withheld, you're responsible for them. $60K times 1.82% in fees is $1,092. $60K times 2x is 120K points. Let's run the numbers for cashback and also travel. In the case of cashback, let's say you value your points at 1 cent per point. You're getting about $1,200 in value minus $1,092 is $108 net value. To be fair though, that's pretty much free value outside of the time commitment and again, brain cells. If you're on Team Travel and you're targeting 2 cents per point, 120K is about $2,400 in value minus $1,092 is about $1,300 net value. And this is the target value, but it can be a lot higher depending on what you want to redeem for and what you're willing to pay. I would hazard to guess that most people doing this type of arbitrage are doing it for travel value. You're pretty much turning about $1,100 in fees into $1,200 in cash or $1,100 in fees for a first-class flight. This is well within the range of what people consider good deals. Your mileage may vary, but people happily pay 2K to 3K for business and first, and this usually does require starting from abroad, going to the US, and then returning back to abroad. So for example, Paris to North America, to Auckland, to Asia, to Paris. Okay, so people are arbitraging rent day probably towards travel. Bilt wasn't happy because it was costing them. Why is this a red flag for us? The main reason to me is that there's other cards like the Citi Double Cash that do this all the time. So here you get 2% back, 1% when you buy and 1% when you pay. No caps, no annual fee, no date requirements. If you're watching this channel, and especially if you're paying taxes for your credit card, you're probably paying off your card afterwards, so effectively 2%. Cashback is earned as thank you points, which you can redeem for 1 cent per point, or if you have a card like the Citi Strata Premier, you then can transfer them out to partners. So the Double Cash was able to give 2% cash back or 2x points with no issue, but it is a problem for Bilt. We can actually make a lot of inferences from public data. Only 0.8% of card members, or about 0.12% of total members, use cards towards taxes. This though is accounting for 20% of bonus category costs, so about 20% of all the points they're giving. 0.12 divided by 0.8 is 15%. 15% of their total members have cards. In 2022, they had about 500,000 members, times 15% is 75,000 card members. Of the 75,000, 0.8% are using it towards taxes, which is about 600 people. I'm assuming the numbers have grown by a lot since 2022, probably by at least tenfold, so let's say 6,000 people. The maximum cost of letting 6,000 people do these payments and get bonus points would be 1,000 points times 6,000 is 6 million points, and at 1 cent per point, that's 60K a month, and 2 cents per point, 120K a month. That means per year, it would cost them about 720K to 1.4 million. On one hand, I get that it can't be a lot of money. On the other hand, they just raised a monster round. They just raised another 150 mil at a 3.1 billion valuation. This was after raising $200 million at a $3.1 billion valuation earlier this year in January. So to me at least, the cost feels pretty minimal. If anything, this is an obvious sign that they're moving away from credit card enthusiasts and people looking to maximize value and more towards casuals. And from a business perspective, it makes a ton of sense. Credit card enthusiasts try to maximize value, and they're pretty much squeezing blood out of a stone. The people looking to maximize value are pretty expensive. You're after people that are not. With that said, I would not be surprised if at some future point, we do see transfer rates out to partners decreasing since normal people are more cashback focused and don't care about that stuff. Having talked to some fintech founders who've tried to build similar cards, transfers and them buying miles are a lot more expensive than you might think. Especially for American miles, I have heard that it's pretty close to that 1.8 cents per point mark. It could also explain why we don't normally see American as a transfer option, and even if Citi, we only really see it with shutdowns and weird situations where American needs cash. But yeah, normally transfers to American aren't an option. I still think the Bilt card is viable for the 1x back for rent payments, but I probably would do quarterly transfers out to Hyatt or other partners while you can in case they do devalue it. A lot of it is just about de-risking because we have seen similar behavior with other fintechs in the past. For example, for Brex, we saw a devaluation for point transfers out to airlines. The idea though is that they hit a critical mass and they don't need to care anymore. If you are looking for a good tax payment option, I probably would just sign up for other cards and intro bonus hunts. For example, right now as of filming, the Chasing Preferred has an all-time high offer. If you're a time traveler, offers can change. Right now though, 120k points after 8,000 in spends in the first 3 months. $95 annual fee, but if you don't like it in year 2, you can always downgrade it to no annual fee options. If you redeem for cash back at 1 cent per point, that's $1,200 in value. If you're doing travel and transferring out, target value is about 2 cents per point, so maybe $2,400 in value, plus or minus, depending on you. To me at least, it makes sense to make hay when the sun's shining, and ink cards make a ton of sense. Also, if Bilt is quietly telling us that they don't want us as customers, then I'd listen. On that note, if you want to learn about cards, whether these ones or pretty much any other cards out there, and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, asksabby.com, and also down below in the description box. As always, make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Moving into a lightning round, if you are traveling, I would consider buying some AirTags, which are on sale on Amazon right now. You can toss them into your carry-ons as well, but for me, they're must-haves for checked bags. It pretty much acts as an insurance policy and, knock on wood, makes your claim a lot easier if something happens. I'll put a link down below in case it's helpful. Speaking of claims, Chase is changing up the travel and purchase protection insurance on October 1st, 2024. A lot of the benefits are getting updated and generally in a good way. For example, travel accident protection for some products is going from $250k up to $500k. One change I really like is emergency evacuation and transportation. With the change, it's now going to be arranged for you as part of the benefit. In the past, you had to pay for it and then file a claim, and with that, there was always potential risk of it getting denied. Given the potential cost, it could have been a double whammy of bad news. For extended warranty for some card products, it's going from 10k per claim and 50k per life of account to 10k per claim and 50k per year. A potential big one is going to be auto rental coverage, which is now going to start covering more vehicles. It's up to 60k of coverage for eligible vehicles with MSRP of 125k or less. In the past and for a lot of other coverage, it doesn't include luxury cars. Moving on, if you're looking for an easy bonus, then consider Moomoo. They have an elevated offer up from 15 to 20 free stocks. You get 8 for depositing $100 and an additional 12 for depositing $1,000 total. So pretty much 20 stocks for depositing $1,000. You do need to maintain the $100 or the $1,000 in there for 60 days in order to unlock the stocks. Pretty much try it for 60 days and you can reevaluate afterwards. They are a direct member of SIPC and they are a registered brokerage and regulated under FINRA. Best case, you like it and you keep using it. Worst case, you're getting rewarded for trying something new. I'll put a link down below if you want to check it out and support the channel. If you're looking to travel, there are a lot of transfer bonuses. Chase has a 70% bonus to Marriott. That means that 1,000 Chase points is 1,700 Bonvoy, and this is until August 14th, 2024. Capital One has 20% for Qantas, so 1,000 miles is 1,200 Qantas. This one until September 1st, 2024. For both of these, I would only transfer if you have a use case in mind and you're pretty much ready to book. The rationale is that devaluations do happen, and you don't want to turn your liquid points into something that can only be used in one place. United right now also has a lot of interesting promotions going on that are time-based. If you book by August 8th, it's 40k miles one way for card members to go to Taiwan. Round trip, you're looking at about 80k points and about $80 in fees. It very much depends on where you're flying from and the prices. So this is a great example where you'd want to map it out and make sure you get value. For example, for SFO in September, there are a lot of options that are in the 800 range, so it'd be pretty bad value. 1 cent per point doesn't really make sense. I'd rather save my points and use them elsewhere. Like of all travel and pretty much any other shopping, you want to compare prices to make sure that it makes sense. If you have American Airlines status, they are offering a match to Hyatt with a challenge component. It depends on the level of status you have. If you have American Gold or Platinum, it matches over to Explorist, and if you stay 10 nights within the 90 days, you keep the status until February 28th, 2026. If you have Platinum Pro, EXP, or Concierge Key, it matches over to Globalist, and if you stay 20 nights within 90 days of getting it, you're going to keep it until February 28th, 2026. Marriott has an offer that looks pretty enticing where you get 24k points and also 10% off for home and villas. So sounds good, but the terms are pretty aggressive. Has to be 2 nights or more, which is pretty reasonable, but you do need to spend a minimum of $2,000 and a lot of other dates and other rules as well. Not for me, but if you're the type to get a big house for a trip, then might be worth looking into. Over on Hilton, they do have a pretty good points promo where you get 100% points back when buying points. I'll link it down below in case it's useful. So for example, you can buy 240k points and get 240k point bonus for $2,400. In effect, you're buying points for 0.5 cents per point. Whether that's worth it very much depends on where you want to go and how you travel. For example, for our upcoming Kyoto trip, we ended up paying out of pocket for the Alexar Hotel, and it was 146k yen. Doing the conversion, pretty much $1,000 for 1 night. We ended up paying out of pocket because we didn't see points availability, and this is one that was on our list. So this is why you don't book non-refundable rates. I'd rather pay a little bit more to have optionality and not get screwed. Or just book last minute like we normally do, and I guess I wanted to be an adult this time. Part of it is due to a romantic gesture that I have with Mandy, but don't tell her. Points availability is pretty much wide open for September, other than a few days, and also wide open for August in case it's useful. Ironically, we do have points, but even if we were to buy it, it makes sense. So 110k Hilton per night, and if you buy it at 0.5 cents per point, so $550 per night. In contrast, we paid $1,000 out of pocket, and buying it would have saved us $450, so 45%. Especially if you're in the late game and you've pretty much gotten all the bonuses, buying points can be pretty lucrative and make sense if you like that type of travel. We do post a lot of our travel and tips on our newsletter, and if you're interested, head over to asksabby.com/newsletter to check it out. We're also giving away a Hyatt Club Access Award this month. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, asksabby.com, and also down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a grimacing emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the Bilt change? Number 2, what are your upcoming trips to finish off summer or for this fall? Also number 3, what travel mistakes have you made? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, consider subscribing, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.